And that's our discussion segment. Trump's ascension to the 47th President of the United States has sparked intense interest globally, with Nigeria being no exception. As Trump assumes office, Nigerians are eager to understand the potential implications of his presidency on their nation, and to do justice to this particular expectation, we have development economist Dr. Niyi Akinsiju. It's always a pleasure having you on the program. Let me just say.
Thanks for having me.
Well, the DJ is here.
Yeah.
What should we expect? I mean, what should we expect in Africa and possibly around the world? How will this shape our economy? Trump 2.0.
Trump 2.0. I think there's a consensus around the world that it will be a continuation of Trump 1.0, to the extent that we'll start experiencing across the world the disruptiveness of the Trump personnel in office. I personally do not see a departure from what it did between 2020, and to that extent, it would mean that we need to create a balance between partnership and primacy, because that is what Trump stands for. He has, in many ways, ventilated his thoughts about global economy. It is first for him, America, second, Europe, and perhaps Africa will tag along. Africa will not be a major element or factor in the Trump presidency, except African itself picks itself by the bootstrap and then become relevant. Nigeria is a major exporting partner is a major partner in terms of value of export to America. I do not see if there will be a lot of encouragement along that line, especially when you look at the need for Trump to insist or to assert on turning or reversing the balance of trade relationship. The idea for a neo-mercantilist that Trump is known as a neo-mercantilist, and a neo-mercantilist is guided by the principle of more exports, less imports. And so therefore, any country that had been exporting more will come under the lights, and that is why you are seeing China heavily under the lights.
So that obviously is not going to benefit Africa in a way, because we are talking about, from what the conversation was before the inauguration is, we are talking about 100 executive presidential executive orders that will be signed the moment he's inaugurated.
And
part of it is mass deportation.
Yes,
Then we talk about tariff as well.
Tariff. So nothing can be more disruptive than this. Already he's talking about external revenue service. So we have normally what obtains across all jurisdictions is for you to have internal revenue services. Now, but here comes Trump that is talking about external revenue service. So which means he's going to focus on how to raise tax revenue from the rest of the world. So it's as if there is going to be one America and the rest of the world. I think it's confusing, and what it desires, or rather what it requires of the world or African countries, is to be able to also build our own structure, our own profile in the trade arena. We have seen what Trump did with the African Growth Opportunity Act, for instance. Even that act was initiated by Republican government, was encouraged by Obama, but of course with the coming of Trump, nobody had anything about African Growth and Opportunity Act. So for me, that act being the center, the the major reference of
But should
what
he worry about
Trump
that?
can do.
Because most Americans will love their president to actually focus on them. And you know his campaign message has always been America first.
Don't also forget that America grew up, or rather developed as a result of diversity, either in terms of human diversity and of course in terms of investment diversity. America owns trillions of dollars because it's able to have investors come from across the world. So the basis, the foundation of Americans' own wealth is as a result of that diversification. China, for instance, that had become a major concern for Trump, holds more than 3 trillion, treasury bills in America treasury. So to a large extent, America itself did not organically develop. Is a product of diversification across cultures, across economies and all that. So to a large extent, we are going to see a new paradigm that Trump is trying to push. And of course, thankfully, the interregnum, the democratic interregnum between 2020 and now, would have more or less eroded the foundation he was trying to build in 2020.
Another thing I want to, because there's this conversation about he believes that to address America's issue of high inflation, it's to somehow increase production in crude oil, and the target is, I think, about 3 million barrels per day there in America. Do you see this affecting our goals when it comes to budget implementation? Because the 2025 budget prospect is to keep oil prices high, which we so much depend on the resources.
Yeah, I hold a contrarian position on the crude oil production threshold. One, because the American shale oil production industry had grown through the years. Of course, it was encouraged between that 2016 and 2020 by Trump. So much now that it's the single largest producing oil jurisdiction in the world. Already has more than 12 million barrels a day production. And now the major investors are looking for value for investment rather than for market shares. So to a large extent, yes, there may be increase, but it will be relative. I can say that. Because when the shale industry was streamed into the oil industry, the global oil industry, it started at a low of 2 million barrels a day, and it needed to, of course, ramp up that production. At the point in time, it was able, to get to that level. So to a large extent, at more than 12 million barrels a day at this moment, I'm not too sure there will be a need, to ramp up production. What will be important for them, because don't forget that there's a difference between Brent and West Texas Intermediate, WTI. You always have some percentage difference, about 10-20% difference between the price of WTI and Brent. The important thing for the American crude oil producer now is to ensure the shareholder is to keep price at a particular level, higher level.
Okay, are we seeing the end of the end of globalization or a shift to protectionism? Because right now it's like it's a lot of, there's going to be a kind of tariff war, yeah. and I don't know. And what does this mean to our diaspora remittance? It's one of the issues that a lot of Nigerians are worried about.
Yeah, well, diaspora remittances will still remain relatively high. Most Nigerians in that jurisdiction are there legally. Most of them, at least by research, we have seen that more than 80% Nigerians that are in America got there through, of course, the airport. And because they got there through the airport, it's also easier for them to process their books. So I'm not bothered about the remittances. And Nigerians are also very educated. Nigerians in the US or Europe are very educated, they are very professional. So, and that is why the quantum of diaspora remittances we've had always be above $20 billion, you know, at par with some other nations, especially in Asia. But talking about globalization, Trump is not globalization minded. He wants to an America that is bigger than any other country in the world, and that is why it's even contending with NATO, the North Atlantic, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. And to that extent, it also means that it's taking on the whole of Europe, you know, and to the fact that it keeps saying that tariff is the sweetest song in his ears, means that this person is hostile, you know, to globalization. I don't know the role of the World Trade Organization in the Trump era, but I imagine that it's going to be a tough one. Already he has talked about placing tariff on $500 billion worth of Chinese products, you know. So, and if you have that kind of threat coming in even before first 24 hours in office, then we should know that we have huge issues to contend with. But of course, we know that Nigeria's major supply to the US will not be threatened. The percentage of crude that we have taken to the U.S. will still maintain our share, and it's not actually
I'm afraid we have to.
Right.
So thank you very much, development economist Dr. Niyi Akinsiju.